You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Innovation Fuel, the podcast that brings you fantastic stories from entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. I am Dave Gelareh.
And I am Gelareh Farhadian. We are educators, entrepreneurs, and your hosts. Innovation Fuel is our weekly business podcast brought to you by University Canada West. Each week, we explore diverse business models, entrepreneur journeys, experts' insight, and managerial challenges, and how companies stay agile and innovative during COVID-19. Check out our episodes at www.ucanwest.ca/innovationfuel. Hello.
Hello, Gelareh. How are you doing today?
Okay, I'm trying to build an app.
What?
You're trying
to build an app?
Yes.
Wow. What's the app about? Why are we whispering?
I don't know. I cannot.
It's a secret.
Of course, no one should know. But I want to tell you something. You know that you can create an app without coding?
What?
No code apps?
Look. Oh, yeah. I think I've heard of this before. Where you don't need to go and get yourself a software engineer. You can actually take things and do it yourself. It's a do-it-yourself. Yeah.
Of course, it has some challenges because it has some limitations. You cannot do everything on it, but it's a minimum viable product. See? Huh?
Yeah, I love it. So what are we building? How can we use low code, no code to build an app?
I'm not very familiar with that one, and also I was thinking about how it can change the cost of startups and how it's working. Just trying to figure it out by myself right now. But I think that we have someone who can help us.
Yeah? Who can help us?
Dr. Mohammad Keyhani. And he is an associate professor and department chair in entrepreneurship and innovation at Haskayne School of Business, University of Calgary.
I love it. Quick, we're getting our next unicorn, Gelareh. This is our unicorn. Let's find out what Mohammad can do for us.
Yes, let's welcome Mohammad Keyhani to another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Yes, welcome, Mohammad, to Innovation Fuel. We're so excited to have you here, my friend. But before we jump into this element, I know we've got some juicy things around entrepreneurship here that we're going to learn today, but I need to know more about you, Mohammad. Our audience needs to know more about you. Can you give us a little bit of a short backstory on who you are, Mohammad?
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Hello to you, Dave and Gelareh, and thank you for inviting me to the Innovation Fuel podcast. A little bit about me. I am an Iranian-Canadian. I immigrated here to do my PhD. I actually lived here when I was a kid, and my dad was doing his PhD, but so I'm a second-time immigrant to Canada. And so I studied at York University. I did a PhD in strategic management with a focus on entrepreneurship. And then I was hired as a professor at the University of Calgary's Haskayne School of Business. I've been happy to work here at Haskayne. It's been a great environment for me. I've been publishing research as a research professor, those peer-reviewed academic journals that we all want to publish in. That's been my main job as a professor in Haskayne, but I'm also a teacher of entrepreneurship courses, sometimes strategy courses. And I also like to advise startups and engage with the community and sometimes even work with startups, get my hands dirty, if you will. Even though, it's not really expected of me as a professor to do that, but it's good to do that kind of thing and prepare yourself better and just sort of see what's going on in the real world of entrepreneurship and industry. So I do try to keep a little bit of myself engaged with real world entrepreneurial activity and not entirely have my head in just books and articles and the world of abstract thought. So that's a bit of background about me. Interesting things that have been happening recently that might sort of kick off our discussion is, first, I published a list of tools for entrepreneurs for my students. And then that went viral. And then that virality of it made me realize that people are hungry for learning about how technology is supporting entrepreneurship these days. So that got me into a whole new line of work. I'm doing research on it. I've designed a class around it and doing new teaching on it. And I'm actually engaged in it. So I realized that there are tools now that allow people to build products in ways that we couldn't before. And I'm actually engaged in building a product myself. So in three ways, that sort of the virality of that list sort of kicked off a whole new direction in my career. And yeah, we can talk about that further.
So, Mohammad, during this journey, you said that the entrepreneurs are hungry for technology, but then it's going to, there is a cost for IT for entrepreneurs, startups. For example, if they want to sell their product online, not only they have to know HTML, but they have to know SQL and other software to do, or skills to create their own, or they have to hire someone to help them for create an app, for example, right? So the cost of it is a lot. So, and I think that you have some solution for that.
Well, it's not my solution, really. It's just the way that technology has evolved in recent years. And I think some of us who haven't been following the recent technology trends might still think that a lot of what goes on into entrepreneurship and building a software product, especially if we're talking about digital entrepreneurship or software entrepreneurship, some people who haven't kept up with the technology trends might still have an evaluation in their mind about the costs and resources that it takes to engage in this kind of entrepreneurship that may not be accurate anymore in terms of what's available. So that's part of my goal in publishing that list of resources for entrepreneurs, was to sort of showcase all the ways in which technology can support an entrepreneur's work. I'm talking about entrepreneurship in a very broad sense of the word, like even innovators and creators who might not necessarily label themselves as entrepreneurs because they are helping internal innovation in an organization, or just like creating artwork and trying to make money from it without not necessarily considering themselves a business person or an entrepreneur. Sometimes they prefer the label creator or artist or other things. So the tools that are out there can help all of these efforts. And I use the term entrepreneurial endeavors broadly. And so getting to know all these categories of tools will help you realize what are the things that you can do with less cost these days compared to before. And it might even give you ideas for new things that you can do that you never thought that you could, or that you never planned to do with your current entrepreneurial endeavor. So you might have thought, for example, that you're just going to create a spreadsheet of resources internally to use in your own organization. And then you come across one of these new tools that allows you to turn a spreadsheet into a mobile app really quickly in just a few minutes. And then you think, oh, I didn't know that effort that I put in to like create something for my organization can now potentially be turned into an app and commercialized as a business. So it opens up a whole new world for a lot of entrepreneurs and innovators. So yes, it reduces costs, it supports your efforts, it increases the possibilities of what you can do, and it's just an exciting world.
And so, Mohammad, you talk about this element, and you kind of lead down the pathway of like when we got an idea, we have this great process, we have this idea, but we start to see some barriers that we think are there, barriers such as that Gelareh kind of talked about it. I have this idea for this application, but I don't have the knowledge to build the application. I don't know how to build that application. Oh, do I have to hire a full team of individuals in order to build a pilot project so I can actually test this in the market? But what you're saying is there's different ways to go about this by leveraging some of the tools that you're brought to market. There's a new way of looking at these things.
Yes, definitely. The issue of how much of it can I do alone and how much of it do I need the help of other people, that is a huge part of it. And I think this new technology trend, especially with this rise of what we call no-code tools. And so I could even label the topic for today's discussion, no-code entrepreneurship. It wasn't a word that I came across early on. Early on, I was just talking about technologies of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship technology, how technology supports entrepreneurship. But I realized as I went into it that one of the most important aspects of that technology piece is the no-code aspect of it. Why? Because so many people have entrepreneurial ideas, but run into this huge bottleneck of software expertise. A lot of entrepreneurial ideas, especially if you're looking at scalable ideas, right? Mm-hmm. Scalability is a huge factor in evaluating entrepreneurial ideas. So once you look at scalable ideas, most of them are software-based ideas because digital is highly scalable. But when people have the ideas for those highly scalable entrepreneurial ideas, they run into this huge problem of, I need software help. I need a software developer to help me build this. And software developers, the world is producing more and more of them. They are still very much a scarce commodity. So we run into this huge bottleneck, which I call the tyranny of the technical co-founder. It's this scarce pool of software developers in the world, and not all of them are full stack developers. So you sometimes need someone for the front end, someone for the back end. But in general, an entrepreneur who can only afford to hire one person really wants a full stack developer, which is even a rarer commodity because they have to know everything about all the different components that go to a software. And they usually have to be a relatively senior person to have that level of knowledge. So these are scarce commodities, these people, and they have high opportunity costs because they are already being offered large salaries in good large corporations and venture-backed startups. And so it's very hard for a lone entrepreneur to go convince one of these people to give up all the other opportunities that they have and come and work on their idea, which often the software developer will say, okay, I'll listen to your idea, and then think, I don't think that's a great idea, or maybe I don't have the resources or time to get into that. I don't want to give up my job to do that, or for various factors, there's this bottleneck of technical co-founders. As a business professor who teaches a lot of business students and a lot of students from other backgrounds who are not software developers, but who have entrepreneurial ideas, I see this all the time. I can't imagine how many entrepreneurial ideas go to waste in business schools because there's no software developer or technical co-founder to come join the team.
And Mohammad, I just because you're talking about something here that I think that the other thing too is that when we have an idea, sometimes that idea is not realized until it's actually done something with it. You talk about, going and getting software developers and going at this element, but before we need that ideation to build into that ideation and into that creation element. And someone might not see your idea, or you haven't had an opportunity to test that idea.
Exactly. So you're pointing to two important mechanisms here. One, the mechanism of communicating your vision. That's huge. And that, again, runs into problems when you need a technical co-founder, because that technical co-founder will come in, but will not really grasp exactly what you have in mind, right? And that the communicating that is going to be a problem. Another issue is the customer discovery aspect, the testing, the feedback aspect that we do in the lean startup methodology. It's similar to the communicating, but it's not communicating with your co-founder, it's communicating with the customer. And you need to start that communication quickly and with an actual prototype that the customer can play with to make it a really effective learning mechanism. But again, if you don't have the software expertise, you might find it hard to get to a playable prototype stage where the customer can actually start interacting with it and you can start learning from that interaction. Yes, so in both of those ways, there are limits with the traditional approach, but no-code technology is changing all that, right? So it's making possible software ventures that have smaller teams, no engineers, possibly just one person, like a solo entrepreneur developing an entire software venture in ways that was not possible before. It's making it possible to target smaller markets that didn't make sense before because you need like the amount of resources that went into the venture was so high that only made sense to target like really large market type of applications with really large potential opportunities. But if you reduce the amount of resources and costs that go into the venture, that means that a whole slew of new types of opportunities become interesting, even though they might not be like super large scale markets. So this no-code movement has become now very popular. There are training courses, there are lots of different tools that are arising, and people really like that aspect of it. And that's why I've moved away a little bit from just talking about the technologies of entrepreneurship and moving more to talking about no-code entrepreneurship and what that means. And again, the word entrepreneurship here is a very broad term. It means innovation, everything. So let me tell you about 3 ways in which no-code technology is sort of changing the landscape of tools available to entrepreneurs. The first way, I call this like the patchwork approach, where you piece together a few different pieces of software or web applications from different places to accomplish some sort of automation or task or function that makes life easier for you as an entrepreneur or automate something in your organization. This approach has become increasingly possible because there is a host of web tools for every little thing, every little function that you want to do. And these web tools have over time learned to communicate with each other with APIs or application programming interfaces. And then on top of that, more recently, a bunch of tools have come out that are basically API aggregators. I call them the pipelines of the internet. And those are tools like Zapier.com and Integromat.com. And I believe Microsoft has a version of it. It used to be called Microsoft Flow. They might have changed it. But there's also IFTTT, if this, then that. Airtable, I wouldn't put in that category. So that's a different category. But so these tools are the pipelines of the internet that allow the different APIs to connect to each other. And so once you have the different tools and the different APIs, and sometimes they don't need to go through Zapier, they'll connect to each other directly. And I'll give you an example. You can build little tools that will do things for you. So for example, if you just want to create a sign-up list on your website to get people's email addresses so that you can email them later once your product is released. For example, if you have a landing page for a forthcoming product. You don't have to go build the software and write the code for creating a form and collecting emails, or even sending an automated email to the person who signed up saying, thank you for signing up, and here are some resources, etc. All of that, there are tools for it, and all you have to do is piece together the tools. So, for example, you could create a form with typeform.com, which is a nice form builder. You can even do it with Airtable or Google Sheets, but Typeform specializes in form building, and so you might want to go to a tool like that. But then you might want the data that's collected through the form to go into some sort of database like Google Sheets or Airtable. And then Typeform will automatically communicate to those tools with their own internal API. If they didn't, so if for example, you were using some other form builder that didn't have a direct communication channel with Google Sheets or Airtable, it's very likely that you could use Zapier or Integromat to create a little automation that says whenever someone fills this form, enter the data into Google Sheets. And then another trigger on Zapier could say whenever there's a new row in this Google Sheet, send this person an email with this information. So you quickly put together, like with Patchwork, a bunch of little tools. You put together a piece of software, its functionality. A lot of people don't think of it as software. Like they don't realize that they just built software by doing that. They think, well, I just connected Zapier to Google Sheets to Typeform. But actually, you built software. I tell my students this because it's an interesting revelation that they built software like in 15 minutes, in 10 minutes in a class. And to show them that they built software, I sometimes show them the typical 3-tier software architecture. So what is a 3-tier software architecture? It means software is built up from 3 components, typically an interface or something that the user sees, a database layer where the data is stored, and a logic layer where the functionality of the software is determined. So when I tell them, oh, you just built this automation with Typeform, look at the 3 tiers that you built. 1 tier, the visuals, is first of all the Typeform form that the user sees. And second, the email that they receive through their email. These are the interfaces that you interface with the user. The data layer, you're using Google Sheets or Airtable to manage your data. And then the functionality layer is when you tell Zapier to trigger an email based on a row. It's an if-then logic statement. You're developing functionality in your product. So putting these together, that's you built software, and it fits into the 3-tier architecture. And it's often a revelation for them. They don't realize that they were building software doing this. But anyways, this patchwork style of putting together tools, it's increasingly possible, increasingly amazing things you can do with them. And I recommend if people want to sort of check out the type of things you can do in this kind of approach, just go check out the knowledge bases of Zapier.com or Integromat.com. And they give you lots of examples for things you can do in different apps that you can connect to each other. Now, the second way of making software with these no-code tools, and I'm talking about making software now because the first method of patchwork connection of various tools often doesn't let you build a piece of software that you then commercialize. It lets you build software that you use internally for yourself, for your own needs, but to build software that you can then let other people use it for the functionality, that's a bit of a different story. Now, one of the interesting new ways that you can do that kind of software building with no-code technology is to start with the data layer in that 3-tier architecture. You start with the data layer and you say, sort of define the kind of data components of your app. So a lot of apps and software, really at the heart of them, they have this data structure. For example, in Airbnb, you have a relatively simple data structure. You have a place that is being rented out. So you would enter, for example, in an Airtable or a Google Sheet, you would make a sheet where each row is a place. And then each column could be different fields of that entity, database entry. So it could have a price, it could have an availability date, it could have a creator, it could have various aspects. So you start creating that data structure in a Google Sheet or in an Airtable. And then you plug in these new sort of types of tools. I use the term sheet to app solutions sometimes, but often it's more than a sheet. In an Airtable, you're actually building a relational database. And it's more than just a simple one-dimensional spreadsheet. So once you connect these sheet to app solutions to your database, they basically try and add the user interface component to your database. So you go from having defined one tier of the architecture, the data layer in your Airtable, to suddenly having the second tier almost automatically generated for you. And you just use some templates and customizations on those templates to create the visuals that you want. Now, this approach often is a bit limited on the third tier of the architecture, the logic layer. It will have some pre-existing templates. Often the use case is just to like display and be able to interact with that data layer. So for the most simplest case is if you just want to build a directory of contacts, like a list of people with emails and photos and telephone numbers, right? You can easily like go to glideapps.com or appsheet.com, one of these sheet to app builders, and just give it a spreadsheet of names and contact information, and it'll create an app that looks like a directory very quickly for you. So that directory has very, very simple logic, but everything else is there. You took care of the data layer. It takes care of the visual interface layer. And the logic layer is there, but very, very simple. Just like if someone clicks on this row, just show them the picture or send an email to this email. Very simple logic layer. More and more, they're getting more sophisticated in terms of the amount of logic or level of logic that they can handle, these app builders. An interesting one that's very active and growing fast in the no-code world is called Softr, softr.io. So Softr is an example. You build a data structure on Airtable. It gives you some templates for how to turn that into an app. And it's building more and more functionality in its various templates in terms of what you can do with that app. And it actually has templates to create like marketplace type of apps where you buy and sell things, or membership style where, for example, someone signs up as a member to take some courses, and those courses are your database entries, for example. So you can actually start to build rather sophisticated but still relatively simple stuff with a tool like this. So that's the second tier of no-code entrepreneurship. You can start doing that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's good enough with something you build with Softr or Glide or AppSheet might be good enough to actually start selling and making money with. But most of the time, that kind of software is mostly used as like a prototype or an early stage test version of your software. Something you could go around pitching with, for example, to show people what you had in mind. Or just if it's simple enough, you can actually make that the main software. But I think the more interesting, more sophisticated type of software can only be built with the third type of no-code entrepreneurship that I'm going to be describing, and that is actual no-code software builders. So these are tools that are designed to build entire software solutions without writing code. My favorite and probably the most feature-heavy, complicated one that is available these days is Bubble. You can find it at bubble.io. Another one that's becoming very popular, very capable is Adalo, ADALO.com. One that is recently released, actually I'm not sure if it's released to the public, but I gained beta testing access to it today, was Builder, BILDR.com, I believe.
But I think there is a risk for these, for example, Bubble. I checked Bubble. I don't know about others. Is that it looks similar, like copy of apps, because there's not so much feature for customizing. I'm talking about user face of that one. So for example, if 10 entrepreneurs, they want to use that one and pitch it, it looks similar. It looks they are same. That I think that is the biggest problem for no-code entrepreneurs, that if they use most of these apps, it's make them similar to each other.
I would say that problem definitely exists with the second type that I was talking about, like Softer or those sheet to app builders. With these more customized tools, I actually think that's less of a problem. They often have a very extensive capabilities for customizing the visuals of your app. Bubble has very extensive capabilities, and I've seen various Bubble apps that look completely different from each other, and you can barely tell that they were all made on Bubble. Having said that, here you might run into another co-founder tyranny problem. Remember, we talked about the tyranny of the technical co-founder. You might run into the problem of a bottleneck with a designer co-founder, right? Because with these tools, if you want to just quickly build some functionality that you have in mind, and you're not really a designer yourself, you will find that you're just using the default templates, the default types of buttons and shapes and everything, and you might run into that problem where your app looks like a lot of the other apps that were built with that tool. And I actually think this is a less of a problem, because those design capabilities are not too hard to learn. There are tools to support them. Sometimes it's just a matter of playing with colors and visuals in the app itself. Like you don't have to go into, I don't know, Photoshop or Illustrator to actually design something. I mean, if you do, you can design some really cool things like visuals for your app, but you don't really have to really customize and make your app look unique. But yes, that is an issue that you will run into. And actually, I think the no-code movement is creating opportunities more and more for those designers, because they are now going to have an upper hand in a way that they didn't have before in the tech industry. They can more easily turn their designs into functional software.
So, Mohammad, is there limitations to no-code, low-code? What are the limitations? Like, what are limitations? You kind of say they're going. You've got these three different ways that you can approach it, and you have the customization piece. But is there any limitations?
Oh, definitely. There's lots of limitations, but it's a give and take. There are things you get from it, and there's things you sacrifice. So one big limitation, for example, I'm building an app with Bubble right now, and I know that in some ways I'm chained to Bubble, the platform and the company, right? Like, what if something happens and the company goes bankrupt, right? Now, it's a growing, fast-growing, healthy company right now, but if it does go bankrupt, I am, as a separate business who relies on that platform, is going to run into trouble. So that reliability issue is huge. And a lot of these new tools that are out there struggle with that because they are innovative startups. They're providing an innovative new tool, but people expect from them the legitimacy and reliability of the largest software corporations in the world. They expect the reliability of a Google or an IBM or a Microsoft because that's the only way they can trust and sort of bet their creations on these platforms. So that is going to be a problem going forward. And I suspect some of those big companies are going to come and acquire some of these app builders. Actually, I think AppSheet was recently acquired by Google and is now available as a plugin in Google Sheets, as an example. But yeah, those more sophisticated software builders, I know that some companies are doing their own. Like, I think Amazon has something called Honeycode, which is an app builder. And you sort of have this feeling that, well, Amazon is behind it. It might be reliable. I mean, even in those cases, sometimes they're not, because sometimes these large companies just decide to cut entire divisions or lines of product because they're not making enough money. So, or they're just being distractions from other things. So there is always that issue. And I think with traditional software development, you really don't have that. Nobody can really take your JavaScript code or Python code away from you. At the worst, you'll just put it on a different server or something. Like it's much more within your control when you're developing software. However, like more and more, even with traditional software development, you're relying on little pieces that are done by others, or little web services or APIs, or little, what do they call it, microservices that go into your software. And so more and more you are relying on external entities in developing any piece of software. But, you could make the argument that those microservices are little pieces from different players, and they're a diversified portfolio of things that one of them going down is not going to take the others down. But, if Bubble goes down, my entire app will just be.
But I think that they might be another risk. So please let me know if I'm wrong. So you can run on one of these no-code software, your business, run on it, and you feel that it's a mistake. I mean, the idea that I have it, I cannot run it on a no-code. So I spend a lot of time to learn and build my software there. Then now I have to realize that I really need to hire a developer. So it can be another cost for me because I train myself or work on it and test it and then figure out, no, it's wrong.
Yeah, that's true. Because you don't know these platforms going into it, it will take a bit of time for you to play around and learn the platform before you can make that decision of, am I going to invest enough in this to build my entire idea and business around this platform? So what I did, I'm working on an entrepreneurial idea for a list curation tool, and I'm building it with Bubble. I realized that most of the content curation tools out there are for content curation. They focus on the content of the pages, the content on the web that's being curated, not on lists specifically or lists of links especially, which was what I wanted to do with my Entrepreneur Tools list that went viral, and my students were using that list, and a lot of entrepreneurs around the world were accessing that list. I need a good platform to help me manage and publish that list and curate user suggestions on that list. And I was using a platform by a Dutch company called Zeef. But again, going back to this issue of reliability of the company behind it, I think the Zeef company is not actively being managed anymore. They still have the software up there, but they're not actively managing the company. So I started to worry about the platform that I was using and its reliability. And as I was searching online, I could not find that many other alternatives that existed to Zeef that were able to publish my list and help curate suggestions from the crowd in the way that I wanted. So I started looking for ways that I could possibly build it myself. And for a long time, I thought I have to wait until I have that technical co-founder to come and help me. But it wasn't, I didn't even try to convince anyone that this opportunity was financially lucrative enough to, for a software developer to come and spend time on it. But when I came across these no-code tools, I played around with a few of them. The first one I tried actually wasn't Bubble. I worked with something called Retool. And it's a really, really powerful tool. And I tried, and I saw that I could do some things with Retool, but it didn't look visually as appealing as I wanted, or the speed wasn't as good as I wanted when it ran. And I mean, I'm not saying Bubble is ideal, but I checked a few of them to see if the main functionality I wanted to build could be built with that tool, and if it would perform the way I wanted to perform. So I checked a few of them, and I decided that it looks like Bubble can build that core functionality. As soon as I got to the point where I realized it can build the minimum stuff that I want in the tool, I decided to invest in it for the entire tool. And as I'm going through building the tool with Bubble and learning more about how to use Bubble and the features that Bubble has, I'm realizing that it can actually do much more than I thought initially that it can do. And I've been able to build so many features in the list curation tool that I'm building. It's called Lister, by the way. It's you can find it at lstr.cc. It's just like a pre-release for beta testing only right now, but it's available. You can see it released on the web. lstr.cc. So when I started building it, I didn't think that I could build all the features that I can today. But given all the features I was able to build in a matter of weeks, I would say it's not more than 2 months that I've been working on building this. However, I put out a lot of time in these 2 months into building it. But in a matter of weeks, I have been able to, I think, make it the most powerful list curation tool on the web. It helps that there's not that many list curation tools on the web. But I think I built so many useful features into it that I can call it the most powerful list curation tool on the web. I didn't think I could build all these features going into it in the beginning. But the point is, I'm able to conduct this entrepreneurial experiment at very low cost to see if it does indeed gain traction. And if it doesn't, I will not have wasted that much time. I spent 2 months, no resources. I didn't hire any software developers. I paid for a domain. I paid for a little bit of a premium Bubble account, but it's really all like under $1,000 or $2,000 of money spent. It's very, very small amount. And another point of it is that I didn't have to wait to make sure that this is a market that has potentially millions of dollars of revenue in it before I, decide that it's worthwhile. Like, it was already worthwhile to me just to have the tool for myself. Like, just the market of one person, and that one person being myself, was enough motivation for me to spend the resources to build this. But now I have built something that maybe a market of more than just myself will come and join, and anyone else that comes and joins is basically a profit margin for me because I've spent so little resources on it, and I already wanted the product for myself. In general, I'm very excited about no-code entrepreneurship. I think it's opening up whole new worlds of possibilities. It's making one-person software startups possible, or small team software startups. It's opening up huge new career change possibilities for people. Lots of people who are reskilling, upskilling, thinking of a career change, thinking of moving to remote work now that, COVID is impacting everyone, thinking of a different style of work. They may be able to experiment with building a software application.
It seems that I'm going to build an app and go to Maldives, not coming back here again.
Well, it's interesting that I see a lot of people in the no-code movement are being motivated by this, are actually very motivated by the idea of being able to work from wherever they want and making money with their SaaS applications, their software as a service. Another issue that I wanted to bring up is that no-code entrepreneurship allows close to problem entrepreneurs to arise in various situations. What I mean by close to problem entrepreneurs is that every individual is embedded in a certain context where they know certain problems and issues that need to be solved in that context because they are so close to that context, like because of their job or whatever environment they're in. And with traditional entrepreneurship of, these software ventures that go after really highly lucrative markets, it's not always possible to target all those little problems that each individual is seeing around their own context. But this makes it possible. And so I think it's going to be hugely disruptive. It's going to have revolutionary breakthroughs for business, for software entrepreneurship, for digital entrepreneurship. I think we in business schools are going to be beneficiaries. We're going to be benefiting from this trend.
We can create a lab for, it means everyone can do all the entrepreneurship students, they can create their prototype through the no-code with no cost. I mean, no, not no cost, but with low cost. And then they can test it as well. I mean, that is going to be huge for business schools as well.
Definitely.
Well, Mohammad, I love where this conversation is going, my friend, but we're running out of time on the show today. But what we'd like to do, Mohammad, is we always like to ask our guests to throw out a challenge. And maybe it needs to be a challenge around no code, low code. Do you have a challenge that you could throw out to our audience?
Definitely. I can think of two. One, selfishly, now that I've built lstr.cc, one of my challenges for your students would be go check out my website, be a beta tester, try and find all the bugs, and let me know what the bugs in my software are. And for business students specifically, think of ideas for how to monetize this software. Like, how can money be made with this software tool other than just selling the premium plans that I have in there right now? Think of how you can do that. So that's the selfish challenge that I'm giving to your students. But the other challenge is basically go out and build something with these no-code tools. Go build either a prototype for an idea that you have or build an actual software tool. And something interesting that's going on in the no-code movement is there is an interesting build in public movement happening, where people take screen recordings of themselves working with Bubble or other no-code app builders and just, blog or tweet or Instagram about it and tell the public what they're doing and how they're building. It makes sense for a lot of different applications. It helps you build a community. It helps you get feedback as you're building the tool. So my other challenge to your students, go out and build something and potentially think about building it in public.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mohammad.
Thank you all. This was awesome.
To all entrepreneurs and managers out there, we have ambitious students here at UCW who would love to hear from you and help you with your business through our internship, our capstone program. If you think you have a wonderful story or a challenge that you want to share with our students and our audience that you think they can benefit from, we want to hear from you. We want that information. We want you to be a part of this show. We also want you to join our mentorship program. We've got a great mentorship program to help students as they move on their educational journey towards getting into a career or launching a new opportunity. So reach out to us, connect with us at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel.
You have just listened to the Innovation Fuel podcast with your hosts, Dave and Gelareh. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Google, or Spotify. Thank you for listening and have a great week.